Hi everyone, this is Michelle Phillip from Soul3, bringing you the voices of ordinary people with extraordinary stories. Soul3, an acronym for School of Unlimited Lifelong Learning, seeks to inspire listeners to be their highest possible selves as we come together to share our common experiences, all this with a little bit of fun. Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Phillip from Soul3. We have Soul3 Conversations and Soul3's Right to the Point. And this evening, we have with us an extra special guest. We are here with someone who truly needs no introduction. Dr. Batra, thank you so much for consenting to do this interview with us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes. Dr. Batra is called the nation's homeopath. He's someone who has spearheaded the homeopathic movement in India. And today, if we are being forced to look at alternative medicine, it is thanks to the efforts, actually, the effortless passion of Dr. Batra, who has made this a reality in India. Dr. Batra is a Padma Shri awardee in medicine in 2012, a man who wears many hats, a man for all seasons. Doctor, author, photographer, musician, philanthropist. He's not just the nation's homeopath. He is, as I have said at another public forum, India's powerhouse. Dr. Batra.
Oh my God.
You want to raise your imaginary hat to people?
I'm just doffing it, yeah.
Okay, you can doff your hat. Lovely. So you are, and truly, my conversation with you at another event a couple of months ago was so inspiring. And as someone who is a podcaster who's talked to so many people, I thought you were actually the most dynamic of all the guests I've ever had to interview. So today is really a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. And we thought that in fact, my team agreed that our title for this episode should be The Pursuit of Happiness. Because you're someone who, after having retired officially from the field of homeopathy and all your clinics that you run across the length and breadth of India and internationally as well, you have taken on many other hobbies which you've turned into professions. I'm not going to share with the audience, but I'm going to ask you to share with us what it is that inspired you to start doing all the things that you did when you had already established a name for yourself in the field of homeopathy.
So, first of all, thank you for having me here. And, this is really a very difficult topic because when you talk about the pursuit of happiness, and it's quite unfair because, you said you have your soul 3 and I have only one soul. So you already have an advantage, 3 times an advantage, 3x advantage over me on this topic.
Okay.
But however, I'll try to do my best.
Okay.
And I think when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, and the other thing, of course, is also that I'm not actually retired. I'm retired. So
retired. Okay, that's an interesting thing.
So I'm retired.
Okay.
So it's just that my kind of I still work, and I'm of course an honorary chairman of my company, a chairman emeritus. But I do sit in strategy meetings. I do guide my team on what I should do. I still train my doctors. So while I'm not upfront, but I'm still behind the seat and behind the scenes, I still contribute a lot to my company. So that's just one thing because when you say retired, people tend to think that, I'm sipping margarita somewhere on a beach. And neither do I.
That's also part of it.
And neither do I drink, and nor do I sit on the beach.
Oh, okay.
So I think the essence really is, and I think the difference really is this, that when I was a very busy practicing doctor, I used to see 375 patients a day, and I had no appointment for almost 1 year. So if you had to see me, you had to come in 2024, 2025, because people came from all over the world. Now, the biggest, I love doing that, and I love meeting people, and I do miss it now that I don't do it upfront. But the real challenge was that the time was never my own, and I was a slave to timing. So whether I had fever, whether I was not well, or whether I was not up to it one day, I still had to go to my clinic because I had to reach out to people because they looked up to me to heal them. And so no matter what my problem was, I had to do it. So I think the biggest thing that I've broken in these last few years, when you said I've kind of retired, is that I have now kind of broken time. And today I'm the master of my time, while earlier time was my master.
Really?
And I think that's the kind of biggest difference that I've made in these last few years. And because now I'm the master of my time, I can now meet you at short notice. I have time to do a podcast with you. I can now do the things that I love to do, which earlier were all there, but I didn't have time for them. So medicine actually is, I would say, a very difficult mistress. Because it's very demanding, very exacting, and there's very little you can do with her around. You really can't go back to your wife, So no, I'm serious, because I'm saying
it's a full-time,
but it's a full-time
24/7
occupation. I'm saying, and I used to be a student leader when I was young. I used to play cricket. I was a sports person, and of course I was fond of music. But the moment I became a doctor,
you had to put
I had to put everything behind, and I had to only focus on medicine. And even whatever I read, I only read medical books, because I had to update myself with what was happening in the medical world. So it gave me very little time to do everything else. Now from that time, I've not even kind of retired, but I would say from the time I set up an organization, and I could take a back seat, partly. I then found time to do the things that I love to do. And what I did is that I always believe that there are two P's that you need. And that's always easy to remember. That's why I make it easy in terms of communication. So two P's are passion, and when you mix passion with purpose, then you get where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my passion was homeopathy, and my passion is really to heal people. It is also to help people and humanity at large, because through healing, that's what I was doing in some small way.
Yes.
And now that I'm out of it, can I do it in a larger way? And could I therefore use whatever other passion I have also for the community, also to have a better, happier world? And that's what I've been trying to do. So which is why I took up, I think about maybe 15, 20 years ago, I was always a family photographer. And that time there were no mobile phones.
Yeah.
So, we had those manual cameras.
Yes.
And then suddenly my family said that, oh, you're taking nice pictures, And in one of my holidays when I went and I took some pictures, and then one of our patients and friends said, oh, these are nice pictures. Why don't you have an exhibition? And so that exhibition started in a Citibank office in Nariman Point. And the other one in Car, because they sponsored it over wine and cheese. So after the bank got shut. And it closed, then actually money came alive. Okay, because otherwise money was dead. It was lying in the bank, but it was just changing hands, and you don't know going to anybody anyway. So I then started this exhibition over there, and I still remember that Atul Kaspikar, well-known photographer, was there, a friend of mine, and then he came and he saw it, and he greatly just whispered in my ear, I think, Doc, you should use a tripod. Which really, kind of hinted to me that my hand was shaking, that something was not quite right with my photography.
Okay.
But having said that, I still got encouraged. And then, of course, I started getting better and better. And today now I've had 53 international exhibitions. I was invited by
I think your most recent one was in Dubai.
Yes, my
right?
most, yes.
I remember that.
It was sponsored by the Art and Culture Department of the government of Dubai.
And those were photographs of what?
They were photographs of Dubai itself.
Uh-huh.
And then of course they were also sponsored by Nikon. I can see that you have 2 Nikons and 1 Canon. So that's, just trying to balance it.
Okay.
But I earlier used a Canon, and then I moved to Nikon, and I'm kind of, they kind of sponsor my exhibitions, and also Nikon gives me the MEA, which is Middle East Africa. So anytime I want special lenses, like I now just came back from South America, so they gave me lenses free of charge to carry with me. I borrowed them from them and I return it to them, so that I can get better pictures.
All right.
So they support me in my photography now, so I get some international support as well. And I now get invited by different states and governments and all that to actually shoot and promote their country. And the latest one I've done, of course, on my own. I've just done 4 countries in South America, and I hope to kind of show that off.
You also did an exhibition on Kashmir.
Yes.
Can you tell me something about that? Because that was something that you talked very passionately about when we last met.
Okay, so Kashmir, is actually a jannat on the world, in India as well. And unfortunately, we lost it because of terrorism and because of the kind of instability that was there. And people are really afraid to go to Kashmir.
That's true.
I've been going to Kashmir for the last 10 years. And my grandchildren run skiing over there.
Okay.
And then we used to alternate between Switzerland and Gulmarg, and then we decided Gulmarg is better because then I get my Indian food over there, And the slopes are nicer because you get what is called powder snow.
Yes.
So you get fresh snow and it doesn't get compressed. So for skiers, it's quite a delight. and the infrastructure also is developing now. So I used to go to Srinagar, Kashmir quite often, and I enjoyed it. But I found that people were afraid to go there because they said there's terrorism, and and so I wanted to show that it is a very safe haven.
Okay.
And I mean, anybody can go there, and it's beautiful. And also then when I was the Rotary President of my Rotary Club of Bombay a few years ago, that time, there was a flood in Kashmir, in Srinagar, and there was a hospital, JB Pant, which is a pediatric hospital, and it went underwater. So 2-3 floors were submerged. And so I helped them to get a kind of a pediatric gastroenterology unit set up over there. So I went to inaugurate it.
Oh, okay.
And that was the day when the tulips were inaugurated, the tulip garden, by the Chief Minister. I just happened to be there by accident. And then I took pictures of that, and then that came out well. And then I thought, that since I'm doing different seasons of Kashmir, I must actually do 4 seasons of Kashmir. And so I did all the 4 seasons of Kashmir. And I missed out on autumn.
Okay.
So I flew back again for 3 days just to capture the
autumn.
Just to capture the golden leaves on the floor, which was really very beautiful. So that completed my exhibition. So I had that exhibition at the Tata Theatre a couple of months ago in September. And now the Free Press Journal is hosting me again to have another one between 22nd of January and 10th of February or 12th of February over here in their gallery. So I'm going to repeat that exhibition for people who miss like you.
Yes.
So that there's no FOMO, and then you can't say that you missed out on something. And I think what encouraged me to do this, of course, is 2 things. Number one is, I believe that photography has made me a better doctor. Because it allowed me the difference between seeing and perceiving.
That's interesting.
Okay,
yes.
Because perceiving is seeing with insight. And therefore, if I looked at a patient or a face or a body, I could actually look at it deeper as compared to what I was looking at it visually, superficially. So I think it made me a better doctor in that sense. And the second thing, of course, is that because it was related to whatever I shot, including the frames, including everything else, I put from my pocket, and it all went to the visually challenged. So because there was a purpose behind it, so the better I trained myself to do photography, the more people would buy my work, and the more I would help people.
Wonderful.
So because there was a purpose behind it, it kind of evolved. And this is what I believe. I believe that everybody has talent. And if only we could use that talent in some way for the betterment of society.
Absolutely.
So you could be a copywriter, you could be a writer, you could make talks, you could make communication things, you could then of course I started singing about 15 years ago. So I train every day for about an hour.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your singing because besides your passion for photography, you also practice and you have an orchestra that comes to your home, and then you have shows. So tell us about this aspect, this side of your personality.
So I'm not really a professional singer, and I don't claim to be one either.
Okay.
But again, like I said, when you do something with purpose, then there's passion behind it, you always do it well.
Okay.
So I also kept evolving as a singer. So I have actually sung also for one of the events at Gateway of India for 2611. Like a public event with a Navy band.
Okay.
In the background.
Yeah.
And and I've been invited to a lot of other events as well. I don't sing outside my comfort zone or outside my own platform. Yes, I have a band which kind of about 10-12 people who come with me every year. We put up a public performance. This year it is at YB Chavan.
Okay.
And it is on the 8th of February. In the evening.
And usually it helps to sponsor something.
Yeah, so it's always, because it's associated with an old age home that I've been supporting, because I believe that we're getting more insular today.
Yes.
And we're not looking after our people, especially our old people, because we are kind of ignoring them. And there's a lot of loneliness in their lives. And if there's something that we could do to look after them, so I've been doing it for the last 40 years. There's an old age home called the Shepherd's Widows Home in Baikala. And we've been looking after them for a long time. And so every year they come to the concert, and whatever money we collect all goes to them.
Oh,
so it's actually for a cause again.
Yes.
And again, because it's for a cause, so I keep improving it, and because it's for a cause, then all celebrities come as well. They support the cause.
That's true.
So then it gets multiplied, and this is all the ages before there was influencers and before you had social media, So it really helped a lot. And I have now just come out also with a homeopathic anthem, which I've shot, and this thing,
really?
which is, so in 3 days it crossed 1 million views.
Wow.
And so it's a super hit, and I sang with Mahalakshmi Iyer, another doctor called Dr. Rahul Joshi.
And what is it called? What is the name of this? It's just a homeopathic anthem?
It's a homeopathy anthem.
Okay. And
yeah, homeopathy sabka taaj hai. It's like,
Okay.
that's what it's called, and it's already got more than a...
can we ask you to sing a few lines of maybe the
No,
chorus or something, or you
no,
need
no.
your orchestra for that?
No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's... I'm saying you can go on YouTube and...
Oh yes,
and-
we
and-
will.
and-
We will
and-
do
and-
that.
and
Don't
catch
worry.
it- and catch it there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure.
At
No,
least then it'll become a
Yeah.
million and one.
Yeah. Oh
Because
yes,
it's-
for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
It's now already 1.2 point some million, so
Okay.
every time you watch it, it gets one more point.
Yeah.
So
So,
it'd be
Doc,
nice
at
to do that.
60, you signed up for a management course in Harvard on health practices?
No,
Okay.
I did a course in Harvard on medical excellence.
Medical excellence.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So-
what made you sign up? I mean, normally at 60, 65, we are all getting ready to now start focusing on what do I want. And again, you've chosen a course which, gave you the expertise to go on and then do things for others. So, what made you realize that that had to be your focus?
Nothing made me realize. My son pushed me into it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's like normally we have parents sending kids to school.
Yes,
And
that's
for
right.
higher education.
Uh-huh.
Here we had my son sending me for higher education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is, often we try to kind of substitute what we want for our children.
Yes,
And
that's
therefore I
right.
would say I would want my grandson to be a singer because I want to be a singer.
Singer,
I want him to
true,
be a doctor
true,
because
true.
I wanted to be a doctor and I couldn't be one, for example.
Yes.
So similarly, I think my son always wanted that he should go to Harvard to do a course over there. But because he had a kid and because he was looking after work and because he was a doctor, he didn't have the time to do it. So I think he did the next best thing. He sent his father off to Harvard and he said, now you pack off and you go there.
Yes.
And I was so shocked because it was so difficult actually. I had reading material, I had all these case studies.
Yeah.
I didn't understand a thing. And I asked my son, I said, you've been to ISB, you've done a course there, at least help me. No, Papa, you go there
You're
and
on
you
your
do
own.
it. And I was doing that, and then actually, of course, it was so exciting and so
Yes,
wonderful.
I'm
I actually celebrated my 60th birthday over there.
Oh, okay.
And that's the day I graduated. So I
Okay.
got my certificate there, and yes, I was the oldest student in the course. But it was fun to kind of, interact with people, and they were selected from different parts of the world. So we had a group of about 45 people. Almost all the top hospitals in Singapore, government had sponsored them because health is a very big thing there. We had people from Italy who were running 1,000-bedded hospitals there. One of my personal co-colleagues was also a lady who was Vice Admiral of the Navy, looking after 300 armed forces hospitals across the world.
Okay.
So those are the kind of people that we interacted with. So it was great fun, great learning. And I really came back with a lot of learning. And when I came back, I think it took me at least 5 years or more to implement part of that learning into my company. And it actually made a lot of difference. So I think, and also what happens is when you're a first generation entrepreneur and you set up your own company, then what do you think at the end of it, you say, I've run my company for 25 years, I know it all.
Yeah.
But when you
that's
go there,
true.
you understand that you knew nothing.
Nothing.
And that there was so much more to learn. And I think the one thing that Harvard taught me also was that you have to build a learning organization. And an organization of continual learning.
Yes.
And in medicine,
Yes.
that's very important because medicine gets outdated very soon. I'm saying we never studied either chikungunya or avian flu or even COVID when we were in medical college. But all these things come up, and every time now you're talking about, a kind of a white pneumonia and things like that coming from China again. So there's always something new that's cropping up. So unless you are up to it, and unless you have a knowledge bank, and unless you are, kind of updating yourself regularly, medicine gets outdated very fast.
That's true.
So
That's true.
always build an organization, and even for yourself as a person, always keep learning.
Yes.
I'm saying always learning is the motto to stay young and to not
Perfect.
grow old.
Yeah, so I must share this moment that Soul 3, the L cube is actually for lifelong learning.
Oh, okay,
So,
great. So
School of Unlimited Lifelong Learning. That's
There
how
we
we get Soul 3. So, Doc, people know you as this highly successful entrepreneur, doctor. Few know about your initial stage when you were trying to set up business and you were trying to establish yourself. And you shared some very interesting anecdotes about you carrying bottles of, was that Coca-Cola or something? You were carrying it to the second and third floor of buildings. I loved that anecdote. Can you please share that with us?
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So making me go back in time, and they're not
Yeah.
always happy times. But anyway, so yes. So when I was a medical student, and around that time, my father set up a kind of a company, which was like a dealership in Malabar Hill for Coca-Cola. And so what I had to do was, we had an old truck, and we had to put in those crates of Coca-Cola.
Okay.
And of course we had loaders and we had drivers to carry it.
Yeah.
But sometimes they were not available. So I had to carry the crate of Coke to 6 floors, because that was the highest in Malabar Hill, myself. And we used to get a 1 rupee commission for the whole crate, which was 24 bottles.
Okay.
Now by chance if one bottle chipped, you lost your entire commission. That 1 rupee was gone, which you made. So it actually taught me the value of personal involvement in business, B, the kind of risk appetite that you must have, because a small chip can actually lose all your profits and things like that. And also then you learn the hard way. And also when I then became a doctor, I mean, homeopathy was not recognized at that time. I was one of the youngest doctors in the country at 22. And when I started looking after a charitable clinic, I was paid 150 rupees a month. I changed 3 buses to go to my place of work, and it was not easy at all. And because the profession was not recognized, and neither was medicine glamorous.
That's true.
Medicine was, thick glasses, thick rimmed glasses, always a white coat, it was not at that time, so people didn't think of it. There was no funding coming either. So I had to really struggle it out. I had to borrow money at 36% per annum when I set up my first own clinic. And it then took me 10 years to repay that. And whenever I went to somebody and I said, I'm a doctor, and they all came around and started asking, what I call curb consultations, take you in the corner and say, doctor, I've got a bad headache, what can I do for my migraine? And things like that, they catch you everywhere. I mean, sometimes the pilot puts the plane on autopilot and then comes to talk to me.
The pilot puts his plane on autopilot and comes for a consult.
Yeah, for his daughter's
acne.
Obviously for his daughter's acne. It's kind of happened sometimes, but I'm just joking. But yes, but it is almost there. It is true actually, partly true as well. So I've been through all of that. And then when you tell them I'm a homeopath, then they turn away. Not any longer now, of course, but I'm talking about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when I started my practice. So it was not easy, because it was like with missionary zeal. You actually have to catch somebody, and then you have to convince them that this is the right kind of treatment and this is why you must take it. So sometimes it would take 2 hours or 3 hours to convince one person to, and you always started with the lowest rung of the family, because you always had the servants first, and then the servants said, "Saab wo bahut acha doctor hai, uske paas jao," because it was a free clinic. So you worked your way from below upwards, from the grassroots upward. And that's something also that held you in good stead. So those are the early days, and then of course.
No, but even today there is that debate about allopathy versus homeopathy. Fortunately, more people have recognized that alternative medicine, and I shouldn't call it alternative medicine, because I mean it's called that in the news, in the conversational spaces. But I feel that homeopathy is definitely one very powerful way of providing healing to people. But it's also something that doesn't give you the immediate relief that most people expect. So how do you deal with that? Because if you have a patient who comes to you and doesn't get the results immediately, then he says, oh, this is rubbish, and then he goes away somewhere else. So how do you keep them coming to you, and how do you get them to understand that it takes time for homeopathic medicine to work?
So fortunately, that's no longer true.
Yeah.
Because according to World Health Organization, homeopathy now is the second largest system of medicine in the world.
Very true.
And it's also the fastest growing. So while pharma is growing at 10%, homeopathy is growing at 25% for the last 5 years, back to back. So it's now become a very popular system of medicine. Now, why is it popular? It's become popular because people today are realizing more and more the side effects of chemical medicine.
Chemical medicine, it's true.
And they're also realizing that self-medication is very wrong, because it comes with its side effects. It's not the doctor's fault. But it's just that people started, and as you correctly said, we are now part of a 2-minute youth revolution.
Yes.
Okay. We want noodles in 2 minutes. We want results in 2 minutes. So we want, it's a jhatpat generation.
That's true.
That we are talking to. So certainly they don't have the time and the patience to try out something long term. But there's also that great awareness. And now medicine also recognizes medical system, which is called iatrogenic disorders.
What is it called?
Iatrogenic disorders. So the iatrogenic means drug-induced disorders. And 300 people die every day in America of this problem. Now that's the equivalent of a plane crash. But it's the elephant in the room which nobody sees or talks about.
Yeah.
So it's so obvious that, but now more and more people, because of social media, because of, so on one side, yes, the young people want, quick results, but on the other side, they also now becoming more aware of the fact that if I actually self-treat myself and take these kind of medicines, I'm going to suffer in the long run. And therefore, they're looking for safer and holistic and long-term solutions.
Yes.
Now, coming back to your problem about, your question about, what is quick and what is fast and what is slow. Everything in life is relative.
Very true.
Okay.
Very true.
So when you're dealing with a very major problem, time is of great essence. When you're dealing with a very chronic problem, it's always there for a long time. And therefore, I always say, for example, if you have a 10-year-old migraine problem, then you at least give 10 months for it to get cured. And again, there's a difference between suppression and temporary treatment versus a cure and a palliation. So what you are seeing today is that you have a headache, you take a pill, it goes away, but it comes back again. And then you have the migraine for 10 years.
Yeah.
So what is longer? Was that one day of pain relief better?
Yeah.
Or was it the 10 years of suffering from a migraine headache longer? So when you look at it like this, then homeopathy is actually quicker.
Okay.
It's actually faster because it goes to the
root of the problem.
And it kind of cures you from the root. And those problems don't reoccur again. And it does it safely and it does it surely. So for chronic problems, it's relative time span.
Okay.
It's the same thing for a skin problem. I'm just giving you a common example so that's easily understood.
Yes.
So for example, you have a skin problem and I apply some ointment or a steroid cream. It'll disappear.
Yeah.
The moment I stop using, it comes back again. So then you have psoriasis problem, which lasts for 20 years.
Okay.
And then you say, no, but I was all right with the cream, and you never were all right.
That's true.
You're just suppressing it.
Yeah.
So I think now coming to an acute problem. So this is like a chronic problem, which is why it appears it is long because people come to you for a chronic problem, they come to you for something which is long lasting, which has been there for a long time. But if supposing you have an acute cold, or supposing you have little fever, or you have bad tummy, for example, loose motion, you can get all right with one dose of homeopathy. You don't need to go for 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days of treatment. Okay. So in acute cases, it is quicker.
Okay.
So
Doctor, you're also a prolific writer. And I think your most recent book is the one that I had the pleasure of talking to you about, Heal with Homeopathy.
Yes,
but you've written so many other books as well.
Yes.
And one series is a series that's very exciting because of its title, where you say 30 steps to bloody good parenting. I think
health.
The root of the problem is also to be able to convince the parents about what to do with their children.
No, that's not my book. My book is 13 Steps to Bloody Good Health.
Bloody Good Health, okay. But I think you co-authored it with someone?
I co-authored with Ashwin Sanghi.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's his 13-step series.
Yeah. But what made you look at that particular aspect of...
So, I have written books earlier.
Yes.
And I had written for Jacobs, for Arnold Hahnemann. 1982 was my first book. Then, of course, again, I became a doctor and busy and I had no time to write. So I kind of lost it along the way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ashwin is a friend and a family friend. And so when I met him, he told me that, Doc, I've written a series on 13 steps. And I've written a series on 13 steps on how to become wealthy. 13 steps to become wealthy.
Well, yeah.
And then I told him, I said, without health, there's no wealth. So you've written about wealth, but if you don't write about health, your series is incomplete. So that's how then the idea came, and then we spent 1.5 years together to kind of co-author that book. Where then, with my experience on general health, because it had nothing to do with homeopathy, that book. On how to stay healthy, on fitness, on the latest trends on healthcare and wellness, what one should do, and then. That's how that book came about, and then of course it also became a bestseller. I believe we sold about 40,000 copies, which is very well, very, very good. Absolutely. And it's now being republished again, in another form.
Yeah. So you do go away once in a year to some little hideaway in Goa where you meet other authors and all that. So do you think that something like that, a kind of a retreat where you take yourself away from mainstream society and you focus on bringing out a book or on some new project that you want to undertake?
So I always believe that if you're involved in day-to-day activities, you will never get the time to think big. And whenever time you want to think outside the box, then you have to take a helicopter view of everything. Now, how do you take a helicopter view? You take a helicopter view, which is a view from the top, but then you have to disassociate yourself from the ground level.
That's so
So
true.
you can't then look at, daily, things that are happening.
Live everyday life.
And everyday life,
Yeah,
and then say,
yeah.
I'm still going to do something great. It doesn't happen
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
So yes, I do have a place in Goa, which is in a village,
Mm-hmm.
which is very quiet and peaceful, and it is
Mhm.
actually called Writer's Village.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't interact with authors.
Authors, okay.
I just self ideate
Mm-hmm.
and think of some ideas and thoughts, and I discipline myself to write well.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I wrote my biography,
Okay.
I actually made sure that I wrote 1,000 words every day. And so I would have fixed timing, 9 to 1. I was writing 1,000 words. And then in the evening, I was kind of, then dictating
Editing.
them. Then I was talking to my group of authors, who were also, helping me in my book. And then if I've got up anytime in the night and I had a thought, again I noted it down.
Okay.
So it is kind of all consumed actually. So for 1.5 years, it kind of consumes you totally.
So it's a year and a half to bring out one book?
Yeah, probably more,
Oh.
because that's the time it takes to write, and then you've got to publish it, and then it gets edited and re-edited and re-edited
True,
at least
true.
3-4 times. And the same thing happened with the other books as well. Even this book now, the other book that I'm writing now, which is coming out in April, is a book on mental health and homeopathy.
That's
I think I've already revised it.
needed now,
I've already revised it 5 times.
Okay.
Because it keeps coming back from my publisher Bloomsbury, saying, "Can't you change this a little bit? Can't you alter this a little bit?" And then every time there's a new editor has got a new idea. So it keeps evolving.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I'm saying, it takes a lot of time and effort. I have a
So
good
what
team.
advice would you give somebody who, is who needs to be inspired? So who has been your source of inspiration, and what advice would you give? Young people, middle-aged people, old people? I mean, we all need to do something with our lives. And all of us are, as you also agreed, in the pursuit of happiness. We all want to be happy. So you have so many projects, and I'm sure there's something else also in the pipeline as you keep working on
Yes.
the ones you've already established. So, yeah.
So, the first thing is, I think, it's a very good point that when we talk about pursuit of happiness,
Yeah.
there's nothing like a pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you pursue happiness, the less likely you are to get it.
Yes.
So that's really a misnomer. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of people mistake.
Yes.
Happiness comes from within. I always say this, that I live alone,
Okay.
but I'm never lonely. There's a difference between living alone and between loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes living alone gives you peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the calmness. It gives you the ability to clarify your thoughts, to have it gives you an understanding to listen to your own inner voice,
That's true.
and it helps you to find peace with yourself, which gets lost in the cacophony of the world around you.
Around you, yeah.
So you don't pursue happiness, you experience happiness.
Okay. Thank you. So, Doctor, what advice would you give people who are at this stage in the pursuit of happiness?
There's nothing like the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you pursue happiness, it flies away.
Mm-hmm.
It never comes to you. You don't even seek it. It's something that comes from within.
Okay.
And it comes through a realization. And if you're peaceful within yourself and with nature around you, and you have no conflict with everybody around you, you're always happy.
Okay.
So just like how we talk about and we say that health is an absence of disease,
Very true.
so also happiness is an absence of conflict. So when you're not unhappy, and when you have nothing to be unhappy about, worried about, being in conflict with any person or with anybody in your family or at work or whatever, you're automatically happy. So happiness comes from within.
Okay.
It's something that you don't pursue. It's something that you realize. It's something that you experience. And you experience it through meditative techniques. You experience it through the calmness that you find within yourself. And a lot of it also comes with acceptance. Because the more I fight nature and the more I fight things which are not meant for me, the more I'll be dissatisfied. And I always say that, be satisfied with what you have and don't be dissatisfied with what you don't have.
True.
The grass is always greener on the other side. But look at how blessed I am. And I always say this, that, one of the things that I'm grateful for always is that I don't need to raise my hands like this. And instead, I'm blessed to raise my hand like this.
Amen.
So if instead of
Asking,
asking,
you're able to give.
I'm able to give, what can be better than that? And that's what you're
That's
truly
so
best.
beautiful.
And that is something that really makes you happy. I mean, what can be greater happiness in helping other people? What can be greater happiness in sharing your joy with others? And what can be greater happiness in giving rather than receiving?
It's such a beautiful message to all our listeners and viewers. And Dr. Batra, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And truly, you are such an inspiration. And you just have this quiet presence that with the things that you do, you have a message for all of us. That, as you said, don't pursue happiness, but just be satisfied with yourself. So I was reminded when you said that you can't pursue happiness, there's a saying that goes like, happiness is like a butterfly. The more you pursue it, the more it flies away from you. But when you sit down quietly and contemplate, the butterfly will just come and sit on you. And for me, that images of a little dog sitting down and the butterfly coming and settling on its nose, while the rest of us humans are rushing around trying to make something of our lives. But it's such a beautiful sight. And yes, I don't think that, we can describe it better than the way you said, rather than ask if we can give. And in that giving, find our joy. I think that's the greatest focus that any human being can ask for. Thank you so much,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best for all your future endeavors. And we hope that you will involve us, and we will be there for your exhibitions and anything else that you would like to have us on board for.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for this opportunity. I think I'll end by humming 2 lines
Wonderful.
of one of these old Kishore Kumar songs.
Perfect.
Which I sing for my grandchildren.
Okay.
Because that's the world that we should all want to be a part of.
Perfect.
आ चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहाँ गम भी न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले एक ऐसे गगन के तले एक ऐसे गगन के तले एक ऐसे गगन के तले. So on this wish,
Perfect.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.